Okay, so good morning, everybody. Today is another one of our bite-sized training sessions, and today we're going to talk about RFID printing using InterForm. First of all, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what bite-sized training is. So for those of you who have not joined a training session before, the bite-sized training is something we run every month. We run one session every month. They're normally 15 to 30 minutes, so they don't take up a lot of time. We pick on one particular aspect of one of the products from our portfolio, and we'll take you through conceptually how a particular topic works, or if you've got a particular problem or you need some information on something, just send us some information and we'll use that to plan our next bite-sized training sessions. We're always looking for ideas that are more relatable. So rather than us pick up another topic, it's best if you feedback and give us a clue as to what you would like to do next. Just send us an email or social media. You'll see the slide at the end, all the contact details. Just send your ideas across to us and then we'll take it from there. Okay, so what is an RFID tag? Let me just explain. If you've ever been into a shop and you find that you've got products that have been identified and labelled with an electronic tag, so that if ever you try to walk out the shop with the tag still intact, it'll set off all the alarms and so on. So that's a typical case of the RFID tag being attached to the product, and then you've got a scanning device somewhere in the location that reads that as it passes by the reader itself. The tag itself is consider it as in the same way that you would as a barcoded label. It contains data that when it's scanned, it gets used by the system to interpret the details around that product. But this is a particular. The difference is that it's an electronic tag, so it's a little bit of piece of plastic that's normally stuck onto the actual product itself, and it's not like you'll see a printed output. It's an electronic identification that's embedded within the tag itself. They're used in lots of parts of the industry. They've been around for a long time. The automotive industry is starting to pick up some traction on RFID usage, particularly with some of the German customers. So Daimler and BMW are starting to insist that their products are identified with an RFID tag. So that's becoming more and more of an industry standard. But they're also used on returnable packaging. So when you send goods out, say in a big metal crate, for argument's sake, or a stillage, generally the packaging itself is identified with an RFID tag. So it can be tracked when it comes back into the factory as an empty, and when it goes out, that's been filled with products and so on. Used in the retail industry for high value products, and as I mentioned before about security tagging, these wake up when they go past the scanning machine. One of the big problems with RFID tag printing is, if you can imagine in a sort of a loading bay or a dispatch area of a business, you might have 20 to 25 different loading bays all lined up, and the lorries pull up and they get loaded and so on. Well, because the scanning devices are normally installed in the actual archway that the vehicle pulls into, if you drive a forklift truck across all 25 of those loading bays to get to your lorry, then all 25 scanners pick it up and you're not entirely sure which truck it went on to. So there are some problems within the technology, but the way that the labeling system works is pretty robust nowadays. So in talking about InterForm specifically, InterForm it complements any sort of application or any part of, whether you're a banking system, a retail, or a supply chain. InterForm will cover that. There's no sort of specifics to any industry. It can be achieved without any programming at all, so we can use your existing spool file data, and I'll take you through an example in a minute of how we do that without any programming. There are some other options where we can create a simple exit program within InterForm as well. It covers the two standards, the VDA standard and the SSCC. SSCC standard is a serialized container standard, and it uses a simple command, which we'll just come on to in a little while, this ampersand RFID. I'll show you the relevance of that in a little while. And it requires an RFID printer. So these are completely different to your normal label printers, your thermal label printers or your laser printers. It requires a printer that can print the plastic tags and embed them with an electronic symbol. Okay. Now the market leaders in this are Zebra, and Zebra have implemented this within their ZPL printer emulation program. So there are lots of other printers out there, manufacturers, but they would need to be compliant with the ZPL2 language code. And unfortunately, as a result of that, I can't show you the output because I don't have a Zebra installed, and if I did, you wouldn't be able to see it on a GoToMeeting session. So I can show you the concept and how it works, and then you'll just have to imagine the rest. Okay, so this is the simple command that InterForm requires for us to, we can embed this anywhere within the spool file, and it's positional, so it has a strict makeup, and if I just run you through as an example, positions 1 to 2 on the spool file line need to be an ampersand followed by RFID, and then the fixed text VDA 5500 in 8 to 14, an identifier 00 by default needs to be in 16 to 17, and then your data needs to go into position 19 to 40. So that's the one standard. The other one, this is straight from the manual. Here we go. There's lots of positions, and this is what has to be embedded within those positions. Then your data appears within 27 to 37, and so on. Okay, so I'm now going to just zoom over to my live session on the system, and this is the InterForm AutoForm control menu. And I've got a spool file which I'm going to use. I'll just show you the input spool file first of all. So this is a typical invoice type where we've got an address in the top part of the screen, and then you've got some subject and so on, and down here you've got detail lines of the products that are on this particular invoice. And here we have a reference code, and what I'm going to do is going to pick out certain bits of this reference code. So I'm going to take out these characters here, the first 4, then the PMK, followed by the numbers, and I'm going to strip out all the special characters so that I don't have the slash, the dots, or the dashes in there. Okay, and then I'm going to use that to make up an RFID command line, and we'll look at the output spool file. Okay, now I'm going to do this with an InterForm reformatting definition. And for those of you that have not come across the reformatting definition before, basically it gives us the ability to describe the makeup of the input spool file and then manipulate it and change its format to give us an output spool file. So typically in here we're looking for what constitutes the heading area, what constitutes the detail lines, and how do I identify the individual different types of detail line and so on. So I'm not going to take you through in a lot of detail. I'm just going to whiz you through this. And basically what I've done is I've identified as a detail line within that spool file the line that has got the reference on it, and I'm using this where position 61 is equal to a slash. And then I'm using some of the data from that line and then some fixed text to build up a new print line. I'll show you the output of this in a minute, but literally I've just got the fixed text here, which is the requirement for the RFID command, and then in positions on further on from that, I've got I'm picking up this location here, 57.4, 62 3 characters, then 66 2 characters, and so on. And this is what I was just showing you, where we've got the reference, and I'm just identifying the data that isn't covered by the slash, the dot, or the dash. Okay, so that's the reformatting definition. If you need to know more about reformatting definition, then maybe I'll run another bite-sized training session on that in more detail. But basically, when we run the AutoForms control definition against the original spool file, so if I've just released this demo spool file and refresh the screen, you'll see that I've now got a new spool file. I'll just put it on hold so it goes to the bottom of the list. We've now got a new spool file called PRS print. Okay, this is the result of running that reformatting definition. So what I've now done is I've scraped the information that was over here and put it here, and stripped out all the special characters, as I mentioned before, and then I've got my command string that matches the manual for printing RFID tags. And what happens now is when we push this through the InterForm merge with spool file process, using an overlay, InterForm recognizes this, so we don't need to do anything specific within the overlay itself. InterForm will recognize this as one of its internal command structures, and it will create all the necessary escape sequences and so on that get sent to the RFID printer, and the RFID printer reacts to those special characters and produces us the electronic label. So that's the bit that I can't show you. You don't necessarily need any of the other data actually from this, because it's not that we can't print this. We're only interested in the actual RFID. So we would have a fairly basic overlay, which was just used for us to be able to merge basically this spool file and take out all the printable data away, just leaving this RFID tag to be sent to the printer. And then you end up with an RFID. So the restrictions are you can only have one RFID command on each page, and each page will then produce a separate label. I have a different RFID spool file here. Here's a live one. This is a spool file with lots and lots of different information. This is the data, and then this is the coding structure. This is typically an ODET label that would be printed and sent to the printer. But one of the characters down here somewhere is a packaging information. And again, what I've done is run that through another spool file definition, and at the bottom it inserts the RFID. So this is done using a program. So the program that produces this spool file also tags this in at the end, and this is our packaging information. So it can be done with a program or without a program as you require. Okay, so that is the end of today's bite-sized training session.